Well, hello everyone. How are you doing? So, I have been working on a lot of projects, and as I continue to accumulate data, information, I want to share it with you. But some of this information, well, quite frankly, a lot of people aren't really prepared for. And I can appreciate that. We all come along at our own pace. But enough of you are here that I think that you can handle this, because this is strong stuff that we're going to get into. So we're going to be discovering this book that maybe some of you have heard, maybe some of you haven't heard, called the Sefer Yetzirah. Now, for simplistic purposes on the reader, listening to me, we'll just simply use from here on out the Sefer. So this is quite an interesting book. It is a book that has been around for many, many years, centuries, thousands of years, in fact. It is thought that this book was originated with Abraham, of all people. It is taught that Abraham, the patriarch, handed this down to Isaac, Ishmael, Jacob, etc. Now, some will say, and you'll do your research, that this is Kabbalism. Well, it is. But so what? If you're going to take the Hebraic faith, and whatever the case may be, if you adapt it for yourself, then you have to know the whole history. You can't simply pick and choose what's convenient with your particular ideology or theology. Now, it is said that this book also, that as Abraham, because he did not write it down, although he did know the alphabet, and we'll get into that later, that Abraham taught and sent emissaries to the east, including India and China. And it's actually written here that the kings would wait at Abraham's door in the morning. Isn't that interesting? So that they could get the insight. And do you know what the insight was? Well, Abram, who later became Abraham, was a master astrologist. He was also a master magician. He was also a master of the unspoken. Now, you may be asking yourself, well, Wayne, I've never heard the term master of the unspoken. Well, actually, it kind of goes in a lot of what we've been discussing in a lot of the videos. There is a knowledge that was supposedly never written down, merely passed verbally because of the, I'm trying to use the right word, I would use magic, but let's kind of frame it in today's modern vernacular, a technology, a secret to creation itself. And we don't think that about Abraham being an astrologist, but it really is. In fact, it is said that it was astrology that was found in Abraham's heart. Now, this total book, depending on which version you get, there are many of them out there. It's anywhere for us as few as 1,300 words to as much as 2,500 words. This particular book that we'll be referencing from is 1,800 words. Now, let me just read you something here, because there's a lot of biblical evidence to support the validity of this manuscript. And one such is, Abraham went as God had told him, and Abraham took the souls that they had made in Haran. Genesis 12:5. Now I can hear some of you going right now, whoa, 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 what do you mean, Wayne? Abraham made souls. Yeah. And it just wasn't Abraham. Abraham actually used the powers of the Sefer to create people. Now, that's wild, isn't it? You're asking me, well, just how can that be? Well, it just is. But it gets better. The scripture states the souls that they made in the pearl. This would indicate that Abraham was not alone in the use of the Sefer, but had companions. The Midrash states that if Abraham would have engaged in the secrets of creation by himself, he would have gone too far in emulating his creator. And he therefore worked together. Are you ready for this, folks? Shem, son of Noah. Now, many of you are probably already connecting the dots. You've watched enough of my videos. And by the way, if you haven't, go back and look at the Bloodline Invader series. There is enough videos to already have set this foundation. But I know some of you are already saying, whoa, wait a minute, Wayne. Shem, son of Noah. Well, either the timelines have been either dramatically shortened or extended. Depends on your point of view, right? Or someone who had no knowledge, who was putting together something, screwed up, never thinking that eventually mankind would obtain a level of knowledge, not so much consciousness, but knowledge, to begin to figure this out, that something isn't right here. So this alone is really interesting. And it goes on saying further, in the Sefer is found in the Tumad, teaching that Abraham had a great astrology in his heart. He possessed a secret knowledge. And I want to kind of bring this out as we're going through this. Think about ages, right? So if we think about ages, think about, there was a time called the Age of Wisdom. This led into the Golden Age. Now, we were supposed to have moved into the Age of Enlightenment, but something happened. We were, we were attacked. Because what we got instead of the Age of Enlightenment were the Dark Ages that many would agree with me we're just now emerging out of. We've been for well in excess of 2,000 years of a plan that whoever the attacker is hijacked us, in lack for a better word. So let's go on. Now, when I said that they create souls, they called them golems. Now, Abraham could do it. it was recorded that Jeremiah did it and Solomon. So what we have to understand was that Abram, brought with him out of Mesopotamia. Abraham was a Samaritan. He was a citizen of Samaria. His family was very prominent in what we would call today the occult, the ancient black magic. I don't think there is such a thing as black or white, but magic. Magic was an integral part of all societies and cultures. It just was. And this text, when you begin to understand it, has a lot of correlating as well to the Vedic. So the Vedic scriptures date from the same period. And we know that Abraham was not only the greatest mystic and astrologer of his age, it was also assumed that he had familiar understanding of all the mysteries of ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia, because that's where he was born. And he also lived in Egypt. Too many things going on here. So what was the purpose of this book? Was it really about teaching an ancient magic that could create things? What was the purpose of this book? Well, I'll tell you what the purpose of this book was. By the way, imagine having the knowledge, right, to create your own servants. Yeah. This book is really about meditation. And it's through the understanding of meditating that you will ascend into higher levels of consciousness. The book is designed for the initiate to begin to understand and learn how to focus. That's what it's designed to do. And from this focus, you should begin to develop your own telekinetic and telepathic powers. I'll say it again. If you properly study and meditate, it will teach you how to focus and how to develop your telekinetic and telepathic powers. This is a mystery book. It's a book about the things that all of us were told was to be shunned. You don't go there. This is magic. This is the occult. Well, the reality is the Patriarch, Abraham, was in the occult, taught the occult, knew the occult. And the occult is just another language. Let me tell you how I define occult. It's like defining what is normal. What is normal? Best answer I ever saw for that was on a Star Trek Next Generation movie. It's what everyone else is and you are not. So, yes, it is a book about the occult. When you think about that Shem, Noah's son, taught Abraham this secret knowledge, Where did Shem get it from? Well, all you have to do is read the book of Enoch. Shem found the 7 pillars of Enoch, which coincidentally enough, if you are a Mason, you know all about that. Folks, we're going and we are waking up to the reality that they have played us for putzes. And I, for one, am giving them the finger and saying, up yours. I ain't going to take it anymore. Every bit of secret knowledge I get, I am going to pass on. And hopefully, those of you who are now ready to eat solid food will do the same. We're talking about a knowledge that opens gates. 231 that I know of. Let me make sure of my notes on that. Yeah. It's a knowledge that far exceeds our understanding today. The cognitive level of where we are today as a species has regressed so far that most cannot even handle the concept, much less the fact that this knowledge exists. And exist it does. And it's not just the Hebrews. Because understand, even Judaism does not want to give this up. Now, they'll classify it as, heretic teaching. But they can't deny, and they will not deny, the fact that this is referenced all throughout the Torah. In fact, the Talmud states that, are you ready for this, folks? When the children of Israel, the Hebrews, as they were making one of their transitions of their identity, came into the desert, in the book of Exodus, it is stated that there was one by the name of Bezalel who was put in charge of building the tabernacle in the desert. Now, the Talmud states that Bezalel had been chosen to build this temple because he knew how to, are you ready for this? Permutate the letters with which heaven and earth were created. Such esoteric knowledge was required since the tabernacle was meant to be a microcosm paralleling both the universe, the spiritual dominion, and the human body. It was not enough merely to construct a physical building. As it was built, the architect had to meditate on the meaning of each part, imbuing it with the necessary spiritual properties. What we just read there was one that was given the knowledge. It was not shared with the rest. It gets even better. Now, I talked about the fact of Jeremiah, right? Well, first of all, let me finish up with this. Jacob and his sons also created living animals. The next place we find the use of the Sephar is in the tradition regarding the older sons of Jacob, which states that they used it to create animals and maidservants. When the scripture states that Joseph brought an evil report regarding his brothers to his father, Genesis 37:2, it is referring to this. Joseph's brothers had eaten an animal without slaughtering it properly, and Joseph did not know that the animal had been created through the Sephar and did not need such a slaughter. He therefore reported that his brothers had eaten flesh from a living animal. Weird, isn't it? Let's go on. So let's talk about Jeremiah. I'm going to give you a little thing about Jeremiah you may not have known. It says that Jeremiah used as well the Sephar. And here's why. Jeremiah had been accosted by homosexuals in the bathhouse, and as a result had experienced an ejaculation in the tub. His semen remained viable, and when his daughter later used the same tub, she was impregnated by it, eventually giving birth to Ben Sarah. Ben Sarah was therefore the son of both Jeremiah and the latter's daughter. Now, when this became known, they made a special law that when such a thing as this happened again, it would be considered artificial insemination and therefore does not constitute adultery or incest. Told you this gets very interesting. Now, I left that up there long enough for you to see that. It is clear that there is a knowledge that can and in fact is used. This knowledge that we will learn as we go through the book, that it has a lot of impact on modern Christianity. We know this. There was a rabbi that is actually referenced by Josephus called Rabbi Yeshua, a leading sage of the first century. He is credited with the statement, "I can take squashes and pumpkins and with the Sephar make them into beautiful trees. These will in turn produce other beautiful trees." Although the phrase "with the Sephar" does not occur in printed editions of the Jerusalem Talmud, it is found in manuscripts. In fact, the reference to Rabbi Yeshua is highly significant. Rabbi Yeshua was one of the 5 main disciples of Rabbi Joesph ben Jeremiah, 47 BCE to 73 CE, leader of all the Jewry after the destruction of the temple, and a renowned expert in all occult arts. It was Rabbi Yeshua who was Rabbi Yoshan's main disciple in the mysteries of the Sharet, and he later gained fame as the greatest expert of his time in the occult. Yeah. So, where does this leave us? Right? Well, it goes on. Most authorities, when we talk about how this rabbi had taught the 5 disciples, main disciples, that it goes said, and I'll just read this. It is significant in the fact that Rabbi Nehemiah is said to have received the tradition from Menachem, who, as it is known as the rabbi, and was the leading mystic of the first century. Now, Menachem had been in Herod's court. And when Herod was born, he, and Josephus writes this, Menachem of the Essene discussed by Josephus that he prophesied Herod as a child would become king, and he did become king. And Herod never forgot that. Josephus makes reference to the Sefer. As again, many think this is a book of ancient magic, and although it does contain powerful knowledge, it is a book of meditation. As I said before, it teaches how to train to reach a state of meditation to develop the latent abilities for telekinetic and telepathic powers. Folks, we should have already perfected this as a species amongst the races. Wisdom, knowledge, understanding equal a higher state of consciousness. It goes back to beyond the garden, beyond the beginning. So we know that the secrets of this book have played a vital role in the history of the Hebrews. And it only makes sense that if you're going to make claim to a belief system, then you need to understand where that belief system originated from. Yoga, understanding your chakras, learning to meditate, wake up. This is beyond prayer. Prayer is a form of meditation, but it's just the first step. And if you can begin to accept this and begin to incorporate this into your journey of ascension, you're going to become a much wiser soul. You're going to be able to find that balance that so many of us have lacked for so long. And here's the problem, folks. Most have lived so out of balance that if they were to get into balance, it would feel unnatural to them. And they would reject it time and time again until you activate those regions of your consciousness that multi-being inside of you begins to talk to you. It could be your third self, could be your first self. And when you begin to meditate on this, understand there is a prediction given to all, whether you succeed all the way, but no matter what, just by endeavoring to take the steps of understanding, you are going to unlock regions of your consciousness, your soul, and wisdom will come forth. And isn't wisdom really what we're talking about here? To understand the ancient arts that most religions today take their graft from? And you can't disassociate it, no matter how much you may want to. It's here. It has been here. And it's been lost. We're going to learn by the guest I've already had. They have shown you the heavens, the earth, the air, the fire, the four elements are what in fact make us up in these physical bodies. And the mystery is the soul itself. But there are ways that we can learn. And if you will allow yourself, then we're going to learn some forbidden secrets. And isn't that what it's about? There is so much more to be learned. In fact, I can tell you how many modern theologians, theologists, however you want to say it, it's these truths that they can't stamp out. And so they simply term such things like this, well, these are the hidden scrolls, because you really don't want to go down this road. But we are. We're going to learn the foundations of our modern belief systems beyond that of pure eschatology. That's what we're going to do. So as I end this out, I will come on here. Here I am. And by the way, if any of you want to get the book and order it on Amazon, I highly recommend it. And you can actually read along with me as we go through it. So I hope that you're learning. I am. When I see people like Lavette, Heidi, Jeff, Gary, the others that have come on, sharing with us a knowledge and an understanding that many of us never were taught. No, I wasn't. Are you kidding me? Most of the people that I knew 20 years ago, they would absolutely say, he's lost it. They'd be praying for my soul. But the great thing is, my soul's okay, doing good. And I believe that if they could learn to create out of the ether, that's basically what it is. It's amazing how this is so grafted into my religious thinking. Because to me, you know, faith is calling those things that be not as though it is, they are, right? But now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So it all plays in. It's all weaved. And if you can understand how the weaver weaved the basket's going to serve you far better, isn't it? So we're going to learn together. Who knows? I may be talking to some latent masters out there already. As Heidi said, so many of us have gifts and callings that we're not aware of. You go to your grave never knowing you had gifting and abilities. We just never taught. I am leaning, and I won't get into this more and more, but I see an opportunity here. And I'm going to work on it some more. Okay. Listen, be kind to one another. Be kind to yourself. Remember, the meaning of life is about you. Now, that's not narcissistic. It's not egotistic. It's just the facts. The journey of life is about you and your journey of discovery. Because no one helped you to be born. You had to work for that. Your mother will tell you that. Unless some of you guys that got out the easy way with the C-sections, okay. But your death is only going to be experienced by you. So the journey and the purpose of life is about you, your discovery. And I hope it's a good one. Listen, if I can give us and others come to us and teach us these things and begin to show us that we don't have to be victims of these unseen spirits, they're there. They're everywhere. I have some programs that we're going to be doing in conjunction with this that's going to teach you folks they're everywhere. In fact, it is so crowded that when you think you're moving through empty space, you're not. You're sharing that space with, well, unknown, both good and bad, by the way. And I say that humanity, can elevate itself and defeat this curse, these attacks. It's hard, when you're trying to shadow box because we can't see them. But I believe there is a knowledge that once invoked will reveal them. So my warning to all of those out there listening, the unseen, we're coming for you. Yeah. I think this is where we've been, as it shows in the back here. Folks, you see this right there? We're still in the Dark Ages. We should have been in the Age of Enlightenment by now. But we've been held in the Dark Ages. And it has been a fight to get out of hell, because that's where we've been. You don't need to create hell when it's already here. I mean, that's insanity. I often think that, people get so wrapped up into this thing about hell. No, the hell has been what our species has gone through. And the fact that the elite that know about this information, that have used it, have kept it from the serfs, us, or that's what they think. I believe in karma. I believe that the universe is both good and bad. There never will come a time where it'll just be only good. It just doesn't exist. And those souls make a choice going through this life as to which path they're going to choose. And after they leave, they choose that path. They get it. I mean, so if your pursuits are just simply base pleasures, most likely you're going to get recycled back. Never believed in reincarnation. In fact, the thought of reincarnation to me was hell. Because, I was brought up by Paul where he said, it's appointed unto man once to live and then to die and then judgment. I ain't buying it. There is strong evidence that reincarnation isn't reality. Now, I've read that there are some that make the decision, sell out to it, And you can. Listen, you can invoke the dark powers. In fact, it's probably more easier done than what most realize. And you can. A lot do. Think about that. This day of pre-programming, it's amazing how many of us have, in fact, been confronted with that. And probably started down that path. But there's also those that are born naturally good. They're lights. They're emissaries. Teachers. Awakeners. People who care. Who will sacrifice personal reputation to saying, screw this, I'm going to tell the truth as what I am reading to be the truth. Now, is it? Well, truth is an enigma. It truly is. I reason it this way. If mankind actually knew the truth at one time, we've lost it and replaced it with an illusion. But truth has a way, no matter what is covering it, it always finds a way to yet be seen, particularly with the eyes that are searching. And it's not these eyes, folks. All right. I appreciate every one of you. Again, be kind to one another. And I think the next installment is going to even get better. We're going to start learning those keys to understanding how one meditates, how one can begin to develop kinetic powers, telepathic powers. Listen, I'm closing here and I'm going to end up getting another tangent, but you have skills. I have them. I'm learning to perfect them all the time. I do experiments to see what works and what doesn't. And the ones that do work, yeah. And by the way, this is not, boom, and it just suddenly appears. The ether doesn't work that way. Remember, who you are today took years to fashion that, right? And as it takes 28 days to lay down the neurosympathetic pathways in your brains to form a habit, the same thing can happen where you can start practicing these skills. You'd be surprised how many of you have high degrees of telepathic powers. Now, it sounds weird, but it's true. And I think eventually our species will stop talking. Words are the worst form of communication. Thought is the best. So I'll do my Bill Murray impression. We'll talk soon.